Good morning, everyone. So as you can tell, we have another cold, snowy, rainy day. And as always, we are working. So I want to take some time and break down an engine that is really near and dear to my heart. And that once again gets rather a bad reputation that it doesn't deserve. And we're going to talk about everything that's not wrong with the legendary Ford 300. And a little bit about the 240 that was previously out there as well. Now, both these engines share a lot in common. The 240 heads are compatible with 300s. Some guys will swap them out to get a little bit more compression on the carbureted 300s. So the history of the Ford Straight Six goes all the way back to the early 1900s. Very well-deserved and established platform. But they do have some pros and cons, like most engines. So let's just dive into it. One of the biggest downsides of the Ford 300 is power. They are not powerhouses. They never have been. Now, yes, they can be built. There's plenty of naturally aspirated ones running around with, individual carburetors on them. Plenty of supercharged variants out there. Plenty of turbos been at it. Those are all real things. There's plenty of camshafts and aftermarket support out there. One of the biggest limiting factors, I guess I should say, for the 300s is probably going to be the lack of an aluminum head, or at least a commercially readily available aluminum head. That kind of limits your compression to octane choices based on your full fuel or what type of fuel you want to run. And really a good flowing aluminum head, kind of like what Edelbrock has done for the 4.0 Jeep guys, would be awesome. If Edelbrock or any of you guys are out there, make an aluminum head for the 300s. That you would make a lot of people very happy. But just a little brief history that this engine in trucks had a production run of about 32 years. That was during the time of the Ford FE. That was during the time of the 351 Windsor, the 302, even into the mod motors. That was kind of a transitional period in 1996, 1997, when they switched over to the 4.6, the 5.4, and of course the 4.2 liter V6s will replace the 300. So not all 300s are created equal. There's a lot of them out there. They were used in dump trucks, pickup trucks, cars, even equipment. A lot of generator powered 300s are out there. Airports use them in their little shunning vehicles and things like that. It is a proven power plant. Extremely simple, extremely reliable, push rod, 2 valves per cylinder. It doesn't get much simpler. And being a straight engine, they are notoriously stout. They make insane torque at a very low RPM. A lot of these engines produce peak torque between 2,000 and 2,200 RPMs. That's because of the large rod stroke on those 6 cylinders. You're talking 300 cubic inches on a 6-cylinder. Pretty good displacement. That rod stroke gives it a lot of low end torque, a lot of grunt, and torque is comparable to mostly stock 302s. The torque band is not that different. The difference is the 300 makes it at like 1,500 RPM sooner than peak torque on, say, a 302 does. Now, horsepower wise, of course, the 302 has more top end power, and the 300 is a little bit anemic, especially the fuel injected ones, and we're going to dive into that. So if you're looking at having a performance 300, first off, realize that you have to have realistic expectations. These are not LS motors. You're not going to pick up 40-50 horsepower from just a cam swap. You're not going to be able to tune them very easily. I think with the exception of 1996, all the fuel injected trucks were OBD1, or OBD0, I guess, if you go back to like 87, 88 time frame. I think only the 96 was OBD2. If I'm wrong, please leave in the comments, correct me. But that is a big limiting factor. They just do not have a lot of tunability. The ECUs in the fuel injected trucks were really limited. The injectors were really small from the factory. Yes, you can swap out injectors with other Ford injectors. Lots of guys do it. But unless you're going to run a Mega Squirt or something like a Pimp X or something like that, that's going to give you that tunability, you're going to be really limited. The throttle body selection can be difficult because they use the split body throttle body. So there's just not a lot of options there unless you really get into some major fabrication. Fortunately, the fuel-injected trucks had some really good flowing headers, and they performed decently. I mean, I think they were rated right around 160 horsepower, something like 240, 250 foot-pounds of torque. I think the final variant might have been 260 torque. But once again, they made it at a very low RPM. At 2,000 to 2,200 RPMs was really impressive. Now, so going back to the tunability side, say you have a fuel-injected truck, and you really want to take it to that next level. You really want to go turbo or boost, force induction, whatever. There are avenues out there. Both Holley and FI-Tech make several options where you can swap in a 2 or 4 barrel style carbureted manifold and run those standalone fuel systems. You're going to have to do a lot of research. You're going to have to definitely have some basic wiring skills and at least moderate fabrication skills. Excuse me. But you can absolutely go that route if you choose to. And that's a good option. I mean, you can really add a lot of tunability to these trucks at that point. Their downside is a lot of them have cast pistons. So you're still going to be limited by boost. You're still going to be limited about how much you can actually push these engines. They're stout. Don't get me wrong. They can make some power. But you're going to have to do your homework and be willing to take that on. Now, once you go forged pistons and really beat these things up, standalone fuel system, and a good camshaft, especially with, say, an HX35 or even an HX40 turbo, you can really wake them up and you can do a lot. But once again, it's based on you and what you want to accomplish. Now, for you carbureted guys, great news. You don't have that many limiting factors. Pretty much you're limited to your intake manifold and your carburetor selection. So some of the old single barrel Ford carburetors were stupid simple. They're very reliable. If you can find somebody that can clean one up for you, if you're not confident, very simple to rebuild. If you do like watching YouTube videos and want to do it yourself, they're actually rather reliable. They, of course, offer 2-barrel and 4-barrel options. There's several companies out there that still make both 2-barrel and 4-barrel intake manifolds for them. A budget setup is to swap on the FI exhaust manifold or headers for a little bit higher flow. There's also a heavy-duty industrial manifold that people like to swap on because it's a lot thicker. It's just a beefier manifold. It also seems to have bigger collectors. I think the exhaust port on that's like 2.5 inches, which is more than adequate in my opinion for these engines because you're typically not going to be turning them at stupid high RPMs. Plenty of aftermarket support. And there'll be aftermarket support for these engines for probably another decades. I mean, it's going to be 3, 4, 5 decades. They'll be still making aftermarket parts for these things in some shape or form. So, one thing I have not talked about is fuel economy. Now, somebody's going to come on here and tell me I'm wrong. And I have owned 300s. I've had them in several different vehicles. One of those was a 2-wheel drive F250, regular cab, 355 rear gear with a the R2 style transmission. So it's the, for guys, don't beat me up too much, the 5 MOD R2. Somebody leave in the comments and give me the actual name, but you get where I'm coming from. Either way, it was the 5-speed manual, not the ZF5. Fuel economy, if I was really gentle on it, was probably in the high teens, like 17, maybe 18 miles per gallon. Not a 4-wheel drive truck, stock tires, 355 gears. These engines are not known for fuel economy. So if you're looking at an engine saying, oh, it's a 6-cylinder, it's going to get great fuel economy, you're wrong. It's going to get comparable fuel economy to probably a 302. Now, typically when I look at the older carbureted trucks, especially the 4-wheel drives, and I had a 79, I want to say it was, 4-speed, 4-wheel drive, it had fairly modest tires on it, around 30. It was like 31 1050s or something like that. It was more like 14, 15 miles per gallon highway. That was not towing, you know, basic stock truck with a decent exhaust on it. Nothing crazy. So have that realistic expectation. If you're going to be in a 4-wheel drive truck, especially like a 4-wheel drive F250 with an automatic, you're probably going to be around that 15-ish mile per gallon mark. So not great, not terrible. What is the strongest point of the 300? Those motors are known to last. It's not uncommon. I wouldn't hesitate to buy one with over 200,000 miles on it if it had been well maintained. Many of them out there have 300, 400,000 miles on them. They're still kicking around, even in heavier trucks. They are very cheap to work on. Parts are literally ridiculously cheap. They are durable. They are extremely reliable. And once again, they last forever. And you can build one. Legitimately, if you can pull an engine out yourself and take it to an engine shop, you can probably have one rebuilt with a very nice and healthy rebuild for $1,500. That's not terrible at all. So keep that in mind. If you could rebuild one yourself, you could probably do it for $400 or $500. Maybe minus machine work, but even then, push rod, 2 valves per cylinder, straight 6, not that hard. So who are these motors good for? Well, once again, if you have a startup business that you need a either half ton or even a 3/4 ton or 1 ton truck, say a regular single rear wheel F350, and you're not towing crazy heavy, especially if you have an automatic, keep in mind, keep your towing marks kind of conservative. And I know there's videos out there of guys towing 7, 8, 10,000 pounds with these trucks. That might work if you're on really flat ground. If you're in the mountains like us, I cannot see towing 8 or 9,000 pounds with a automatic paired with a Ford 300. I think that's going to be asking a lot of that combination. Now, if you have a ZF5 that has a stupid low first gear ratio and you're comfortable pulling hills at 7,000 or 8,000 pounds in second and third gear, run it. I'd run the heck out of it if that's what I had available. But once again, just have those realistic expectations. I'm not knocking on you 300 guys out there. I know there's a lot of you. Sometimes you get angry when I say that, it's not the greatest tow engine out there. It gets the job done. So if you're not planning on going anywhere fast, but you want something that has really low end grunt and you can still tow your landscaping trailer around town, even a single car hauler, if you're just pulling a 2-axle flat deck trailer and you're only putting a 3,000 or 4,000 pound car on it, run it, man. I mean, if it works, it works. Your fuel economy is going to be terrible, but it'll get the job done. So once again, great engine, very reliable. I don't think they get they get too much of a negative reputation for what they are. People say they're complete dogs, they're junk. Yeah, maybe if you have a 300 paired with like a C6 transmission and a 1 ton with like 308 gears, yeah, I can see that being really underpowered and feeling like a dog. But if you're in a 4 or 5 speed manual truck or even a 4-speed automatic truck, you're geared properly, you're not running huge tires, it'll get the job done, guys. So once again, it's all about what you're willing to live with, where you use the truck, how you use the truck, so many factors. And if you're out there and you have questions, leave a comment. I'll be happy to help you guys any way I have based on my experiences. Keep in mind, I do not consider myself an expert. I am not an expert. These are only my personal opinions based on my experiences, so please take them for what they are. I love making these videos for you guys. If you like them, continue to like, share, subscribe. Be safe out there. Be nice to everybody around you. I know everybody's going through hard times right now. Just try to be a little extra courteous. Thanks again, guys. All the way. And let's turn off the camera. There we go.